Hello and welcome to the Comics Experience Graphic Novel of the Month Club. This is our show for the month of July. And our book this month is Grateful Dead Origins by new publisher Z2, who have been really great to work with. We are very lucky to be joined today by Chris Mickevich. Kevich, there you go, and Noah Van Sciver. Hello, gentlemen. How are you all today?
I'm great. Hello. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for taking the time to talk to us. So the first question is, and it's always comics. Why comics? What is it about comics that excites you as an art form, that thrills you, that makes you want to create in that form? Chris, why don't you go first?
I'll take the ball. All right. I've always been drawn to comics since I think I was 10 years old when my dad sent me into this random dust-covered shop that was out in Canarsie, and sent me in with $10, and I came out with, I guess they were all 60 cents at that point. So I came up with a bunch of stuff, and I never stopped. It as a form, it just made a lot of sense to me. I think part of that, and this is probably a weird answer, but I don't see in 3 dimensions. I have an eye disorder that I had a surgery on when I was a kid, so I kind of see in 2D. And something about the paneling in the books just kind of was just how I was seeing everything else. So that's probably not a great way to go about one's life early on, thinking that that's the way to look at things, but it worked. I always just really dug comics, and it was sort of like a gateway drug to other forms of writing and other kinds of literature and just wild ideas and strange stories.
Yeah. Noah, what's your answer to that eternal question? Why comics?
Well, similar to, comics got me early, and I was kind of raised on comics. But what I like about them now is that it's like this very private art form, because it's not like you go see a movie, you're like sitting in a theater with a bunch of people and it's like this experience you're sharing with people. Comics are this thing that you do by yourself, and it's like this very private kind of like performance that's going on inside of your head and stuff, and it's like almost like some weird meditation or something. I don't know. I just like, it's the only thing I really know how to do, I guess. I don't know.
Well, you're super prolific, Noah. I mean, I feel like, and maybe I'm totally imagining this, but I feel like you're putting out 3 books a year.
Yeah, sometimes, right? Yeah. I mean, that's. I mean, honestly, that's what I mean. Like, that's all I do is I sit in this room and draw comics, and I'm always thinking about like if things happen in my life, my first thing is like, how can I take that and like put this into a story or a comic or something? How can I use this somehow?
I have that problem too.
Yeah. I'm so like soaked in comics. Like, I don't know. It's everything in my life.
Yeah, I'm just, as I said, I'm very struck by your productivity, because I mean, certainly I talk to a lot of cartoonists. You guys are probably, let's see, you're like 142 or something like that we've spoken to for this interview program, and
congrats, man.
But most people can't put out 3 or 4 books a year, man. Most people like seem to struggle to get 200 pages done.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I'm just blessed. I don't know. Brian, I gotta say, your shop is actually the very first shop that carried my comics when I was self-publishing. Yeah, because my mother lived in the Castro in San Francisco, and I would go and visit her, and I would go to Comics Experience, and that was like one of the first comic shops I would go to as like a 19-year-old and a 20-year-old and stuff. And when I self-published my first comics, I brought them into the Comics Experience, and you were the first person who took them and sold them there. So thank you for that.
Oh, awesome! I'm thoroughly excites me. The horrifying thing is I don't remember that at all.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I totally believe you, but that was what, 20 years ago?
It was probably 17 years ago at this point.
Yeah. Wow, great! No, I'm glad that we were able to help fulfill your dream of being a cartoonist.
That's right. It's a great shop too, man.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And you're a great cartoonist. He said, log rolling.
Thanks.
Yeah. So let's do this. This is a great segue. Let's sort of talk about your earliest work. Noah, you did Blammo as a self-published book. And Chris will talk about Thomas Alsop in a second, but let's sort of stay with one line.
To you, wherever you are.
Talk to me about that initial self-publishing thing. What motivated you to make your own comic that first time?
Well, I remember when I first got into comics, it was all about publishing a mini comic, like using a photocopier. So I made like a lot of mini comics, and then like having your own comic book series seemed like the thing on top of the mountain that I had to get to. Because the comic book, like 8 Ball and Hate, Minimum Wage, like all the great like Fantagraphics 90s stuff was what was being really celebrated when I was coming into comics. So I wanted to create my own version of that, and that's what Blammo became. But by the time I started self-publishing Blammo, it seemed like that was no longer the Holy Grail, and the Holy Grail was a graphic novel. And so I was just like always chasing whatever the next thing was supposed to be. Like I was never at the top of the mountain,
Yeah. Well, but that's okay. You don't have to be at the top of the mountain, right? I mean,
yes, I do. God damn it! I got to be at the very top.
I mean, the important thing is that you're climbing, right? Rather than like where
that's right.
Get necessarily.
It is the journey, Noah. It is the journey.
Yeah, that's right. But Blammo was just all about like, I'm going to do my own version of 8 Ball, like an anthology comic where I can just like learn how to be a cartoonist in several different styles and different storytelling styles and things in one comic book. So that was the goal with that. And I still try to put them out once every year or 2 years, depending on what I'm doing.
Yeah. And so you were doing your own self-published comic. You're hand selling it to stores. You came and hand sold it to us. What was that experience like at the time? Because you're right. You were right at the cusp where basically all the big guys were all like, we're done with periodicals.
Yep. Well, it was terrifying. I was physically shaking when I was at Comics Experience, and I came in and I had my comics with me, and I knew that I had to talk to you and see if you carry my comics in there, and it was the most terrifying thing. But after I did that, I got the courage because you were really nice and you took them and stuff. And also in the Comics Experience, I found like a little card that was like, mail 5 of your mini comics to us, and we'll mail you 5 from other artists. And so I kind of met a bunch of cartoonists through this like network of finding that like thing at a Comics Experience. But yeah, it was really scary. But then like the couple blocks over was like Haight Ashbury, and like that's where like Crumb was selling Zap out of like a baby carriage or whatever the legend, So I went over there and I was just like walking on the streets, like trying to get up the nerve to try and sell my own copies of Blammo and Haight Ashbury to be like my hero at the time, Did
you do that? Did you?
I didn't do it. I didn't have the nerve. No.
Oh,
couldn't do it. And it was everything was so intimidating. Like I had my girlfriend at the time take a picture of me standing underneath that street sign, the corner there of Haight Ashbury, and I still have it and stuff. And it was just like I'm like, because like I'm like in ground zero for like alternative comics basically, because it all starts here. So it's like I'm learning how to be a cartoonist, and I'm fortunate enough that like I'm placed right here where it all began. Yeah. So it was just super exciting. I loved that. I loved that whole. I mean, it's just been so downhill ever since then.
Well, did you get any formal training? Did you go to school for art or no?
I took like a painting class at a community college in Lakewood, Colorado, and that was it. That's my only art training, obviously. Yeah. So.
Okay. All right. That actually really surprises me because you've got a lot of craft. I mean, I'm not looking at Blammo, obviously, but your storytelling is really good. Your sense of space, your sense of energy. I guess I'm wondering how did you feed that like without getting any training?
I just read every graphic novel I could get my hands on. I read as much comics as I possibly could because when you first start in comics, you don't really know like what your taste specifically is. You don't know what your palette is. So you have to just read everything, and you kind of figure things out. Like, oh no, that's not so much for me, but this is really great or whatever. So I would just go to the library in Denver, and I just took out any graphic novels I could, and I had a long bus ride to work, and I would sit there and read a different book every day, and I figured it out. And then over time, like you start internalizing different techniques and storytelling styles and things, and then before you know it, it's all kind of coming out in your own work. So
Yeah. So obviously you mentioned Clowes and Bags, sort of the Fantagraphics group. Who else? Who else would you call an influence?
Oh, the whole Zap crew was a big influence for me. I loved Underground Comics. I love Bill Griffith. I still love Bill Griffith. God damn, that guy just gets better and better. Now and maybe like Eddie Campbell, his Alec stories. Let's see. I don't know. Then later on, I get more into exploring like Peter Arno and like some of the New Yorker cartoonists.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, name them. Julie Doucet. Julie Doucet was a big artist for me.
Yeah, I can see that. I actually see a good amount of Julie Doucet in your work. Yeah.
Oh yeah, she's one of my favorites. And my New York Diaries is like a classic.
Yeah. Yeah. You weren't really reading any superhero comics or stuff like that?
No, not really. I could never really connect with that stuff. That was like, now I kind of go back. I always find out that or I started to realize that whenever I'm feeling like a lot of anxiety in my life, that's when I start reading superhero comics. Like if things are going well, then I'm just like reading alternative books. But like if I have like a doctor's visit coming up or whatever, all of a sudden I'm like looking at 1980s Batman comics or something. Escapism.
Yeah. I know. It's escapism is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Chris. Well, so let's talk about your early creative. As far as I'm aware, Thomas Alsop was the first thing that you wrote. Yeah,
that's my head above the water level mark. Yeah,
and it won a bunch of awards.
We were. I did that book with Palle Schmidt. He's a Danish illustrator and writer. It was one of the we've become practically as close as brothers in the years since that project. So there's tons of levels of that book that really just brings a smile to my face. But we had that through Boom originally, and it was my first mainstream published, my mainstream work, and we were kind of shocked. It kept winning. There's a podcast series called Pete's Basement, based out of Brooklyn out here, and I love it. They curse, they drink, they're smoking pot, they're horrible. All the reviews are just terrible and wonderful at the same time. And that book was one of the only things it was their monthly book for all 8 months that it was coming out, which was interesting. And yeah, we won Best of the Year by USA Today, which was interesting. And then a year-ish later, it got translated into Danish, and we won. I think it was 2016 Best Danish Graphic Novel, which was great. I did go to Copenhagen following that, and for 2 different conventions, and I had a T-shirt that said "I'm big in Denmark." That was kind of great. Although there was a guy I met who was like 7 feet tall, no joke, and there is another picture of him with his hand on my head. Not that big in Denmark. I got a weird sense of strange sense of humor. But yeah, prior to that, I was on an online collective called Activate, where I had an anthology comic that Activate was originally. It was one of the first web collectives prior to Comixology, then monetizing it and the growth that comes from that. Just a free web collective that had, I don't even know, man. There's something like 80 different people on that for a good 8 years, just putting up online graphic novels. And it was the brainchild of Dean Haspiel, who I often say my mentor, Dean Haspiel, because he was kind of one of the first people who, gave me a hand or an intro into how do you do this. As a writer, it's not an easy path to get into get into comics, to get into anything, but it's a little. I've had this woe is me story with other writers in comics before, and it's kind of challenging to try to. How do you get in if you just type? And how do you show? Nobody really wants to sit there and read your entire 60, episode script that you've been working on forever,
right.
For obvious reasons. Like, I don't even want to read that, but yeah, that's the truth. But from that, it was to Boom, and there's been a few close calls that I won't talk about, that due to internal things that have been happening over the last few years, kind of misses and hits. It's been it's been an interesting ride trying to bust into comics all these years.
Yeah. You're working on Activate stuff. Did someone from Boom approach you?
No.
About what else do you have, or was it?
It's Chip Mosher.
When I'm on Activate, and they went, "Oh, okay, we'll read it."
Yeah, no, I had something else on Activate, an anthology series called the Everywhere Anthology, which I always say I'm gonna at some point do a self-printing of it, or small press printing of some kind. It was just I love this idea, and I still have it all. I mean, the site's vanished in years since, because it's a bunch of artists trying to run something. Eventually it goes wrong, right? But that was such a cool idea, where it was just every episode was like a disaster movie, where you woke up and for no reason there was one species of animal by the millions everywhere, and you just kind of went with it. And what was great is I got to work with about 15 different artists over the 15 different chapters, and it was a nice honestly, it was really good practice and really good experience for me to be doing all of this short fiction with so many different artists who, everyone has a different style and a way they work. And it was a bit of a crash course in the how-to of doing this. Sure. After that, I believe it was MoCA, the MoCA convention in New York. It was. And I was tabling with the people who were present in Activate. I had met Palle Schmidt at that, and we, I believe, go on a drinking binge for the next few days after that moment and become friends. But when San Diego Comic-Con of that year came around, Palle and I had the finished first issue for Allsop, and we're doing the thing that, a lot of people, everyone sort of has to do at some point, which is walk around the con and cold call, in a sense, editors, and hi, I'm this person. Would you please look at this, please look at this. And we got really lucky. I don't think that I've had this conversation for years with my cousin, filmmaker Chris Piazza, where we used to talk about the validation of packaging and how it takes a bit of time from the stage where you're just, you're full of, you can do it, and you have the energy to do it, and you're trying to get into something, and all these other people who are behind the screen or books or whatever who've done something, but everyone's story on how they get from here to there is really different. And it was one of those luck situations where we happened into Chip Mosher. He's at Comixology now, and yep. Yeah, I knew him from a couple of moments in New York, and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Well, trying to sell this." And he was like, "Come here!" And he literally, like scruff of my neck, grabbed me and pulled us over to the Boom booth and introduced us to Matt Gagnon. And it was one of those moments where Matt, took his laminate and hit it, came out from the Boom booth, and we spoke for about 30 minutes on the con floor about this. He had the PDF of it on an iPad that he was thumbing through, and he was like, "This is great." I remember his quote. He's like, if this is what we're seeing this convention, we're going to have a whole new company next year. And I was like, "Yeah, okay, who's this guy?" All right, great. I mean, within a week or so after the convention, they were our first offer, and we went with it. And there we go. It starts to go from there. So that's sort of how that happened. I don't think that happens all the time for everybody.
Yeah, no, it doesn't happen a lot of times. I'm intrigued by. Welcome back, Noah.
I'm so sorry. I told you.
No, it's all good, baby. Chris was just telling a long story, so your timing is kind of perfect.
Okay.
But I'm curious about this, Chris. It sounds like you said that you had the entire first issue done.
Done.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
Every time I've pitched whoever I'm working with on something, I've always had like the first 22 pages, the first chapter in the can, so to speak. I don't think it, again, going back to just, hi, I am just a writer. Oh, you are seeing so many of the same person trying to to pitch their concept. It's really a show it, don't say it field, you know?
Sure.
So I've sort of had the ability a few times to pay people to do the work and try to take it from there. Yeah, I think it works. It's not, you know, it's worked. It's
really rare. It's not a thing that that I hear a lot. The people having a full package, you know. Usually it's like I have 3 drawings and a 4 paragraph pitch of you know, sort of what's going on.
I'm a bit I also don't tend to pitch unless I finish the script for whatever it is I'm talking about too. So yeah, I'm a little, I don't know, there's a little bit of quality control OCD on my part, I guess, to get these things right.
Did you have the whole book written? No, just that first issue.
Yes, I did.
The whole book?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, one of the things that Palais has spoken about on a number of interviews when we were doing that, he was just like, he's always said it was amazing. I won't do his voice. I so want to do his voice. I won't do his voice, right? But he was always like, he always kept saying it was this giant, you know, world of one family broken up over 300 years and this connected tale, right? And to see, you know, all of it at once really just sort of helped him lay out it and the look of it and the feel of it and all of that. It was, you know, I frankly, I think that's kind of best. It's kind of how I do it. I don't know if everyone does it that way or not, but
no, it's really rare. It's really rare to hear that. I mean, most often it's I've made a pitch, you know, here's my you know, my log line kind of Hollywood kind of pitch, you know. It's very rare. I don't actually think Jordan, have we ever heard someone say that they've written an entire like 200 pages worth before? Wow. Yeah. No, it's not a thing that we hear very often. So
I'll make that T-shirt to go with the Denmark one. It's I prefer to have the concept in the can. Of course it will change, you know, it'll change with editorial insight. It'll immediately become 50% different once you're no longer just like in your room typing and you're now working with somebody else. You have to have that, you know, there's this, you've got to sort of just go, here it is now, like your turn. Like you are now the co-director, the DP of this, set the world, you know, and I think it helps to have the groundwork or the framework of what a tale or story is going to be, and the beats, the highs and lows, the tricks, however you're going to con your audience, just so that you're both on the same page. You're making pages.
And I totally understand the thing that you're saying, but you also said that the work changed as you were working on it. So to a degree, it feels like you put a bunch of work in, and then you've got to go and do the work all over again.
Not as much, though. I mean, for instance, with that book, Thomas Alsop, I had found there's a cemetery nearby where I live here in Brooklyn, and inside of that cemetery, there's a family cemetery, an unconsecrated cemetery of the people who originally owned the entire cemetery when it was farmland. And what's super, it's kind of amazing that there's not a historic plaque or something, or like a fence where you can't get to this, but most of the gravestones there end 10 years before 1776. So there are like all these 1600, early 1700 graves. And I found this and was just like, what is this? Who were these people? So I had, much like this Grateful Dead book, and this is the reason why Josh and Sridhar picked me for this. I did so much research on that family, New York, boroughs, the entire thing. I could give a walking tour, like a historic walking tour of New York City. If I guess if my comics career goes bust after COVID, maybe I'll look into that job. But I could do that from the amount of research that I did on that. So in the sense of putting all of, that's all in here. You want to get rid of that as much as you can and put that on the page.
Yeah.
Things that would change were, an editorial guideline, an idea, a way to show something better. Pele was great with texting me at the time with things like, "This is terrible. I'll do it better. You'll fix it." Right, just like, "Oh, thank you," or "yes," and laugh and text back. We had a couple of those too. And I, if it's something that's like, if it's a plot point that you need to show something that needs to be there to make something later make sense, I'll be like, "Oh, wait. This is why that's there." But if it's something that an artist would rather do it. Yeah. They're going to be into it. They're more excited to do that than like guy drinking coffee or whatever you're drawing. Go for it. Show me wrong. Make it better. It's we. It's not I. It's us. And that's kind of how I look at all this stuff. I've worked in film and TV since I got out of college. I was 22, and in different capacities and crew positions, and standing in the snow all night long to watch people punch each other. Like just ridiculous shit. None of that happens. You're watching two people when the camera is rolling, but there's like 100, there's like 75 people behind the camera. There's background. There's nothing is one person. So I don't look at it as it being like a wasted amount of work until it's going to press. It could change, and that's okay. If it's not okay, I'll raise my voice. It's probably something with the plot. But I don't see how having all the preparation in place for the skeleton of it is bad. It's sort of, I think it's helpful in the end, because
sure. No, that wasn't what I was trying to.
No, I
didn't. It was more like you've written a thing and you put all this work into it, and then having to rewrite, having to do it again. It's not wasted. Of course, it's not wasted. It's just it's not a traditional way that people work, at least in comics that I've found.
Dialogue changes. Hopefully, by your final lettering pass, it's better. Hopefully you don't read you in it. Yeah. That's always.
I agree with that very much. I agree.
You know what I mean? And that's I always say, like, I'll rake the leaves on the final path. I'll get some of the weeds out. I'll make the garden nice.
Sure. Now, one of the things, Noah, while you fell off there, one of the things that we were talking, Chris was talking about, was working on Activate and it being short stories, and how that was very helpful, to do a bunch of different shorts. And I would say a lot of your early career is the same thing, where you're doing short things, trying to find your voice, So can you talk maybe a minute about the difference between doing a 6-page, an 8-page, a 10-page story versus doing a 200-page story?
Well, it's all, if you're going to condense something down. I mean, so an example I have is in the last issue of Blammo 10, I did this story called Burning Brigsby, which is about these two siblings their father was sort of this J.D. Salinger type who has just died, and now the siblings are in charge of his estate, and they're warring over his artwork because he was a cartoonist, like a instead of a writer. So the brother wants to take the artwork and sell it and merchandise it and everything, and the daughter wants to get rid of it because that was his last wish to her, was just like, take all that artwork and just burn it. So they're kind of warring with each other, and that was supposed to be a graphic novel. But when I got to the issue of Blammo, I realized, like, I could just pare this thing down and make it way stronger as just a short story. And then it was a process of like elimination. Like, what do I really need in this to tell the same stuff that I could have, as a short story or whatever over a book. So I just you know, you have to do like a lot of like character development through like in like sly ways, you know, like just like a brief sentence or something somebody's wearing, or, you know, I don't know, like all sorts of stuff. But it's just like, just boiling it down is the trickiest part. And yeah, I don't even know where I'm going anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that makes you a better cartoonist, a better writer, to be able to tell that story in a tight format rather than I can just go on and on and on. You know, one of the things that worries me the most about, I mean, I think comics are in a great place right now, but one of the things that worries me the most is that we've got all these like 20-year-olds coming out of college, you know, doing their 2-year comics or their 4-year comics course, and then getting contracts for 200-page books. You know, like they still haven't like learned the base of the language yet, and they're trying to write War and Peace.
Right. Yeah, it takes a long time. I haven't written my War and Peace yet. I'm still working on it.
Yeah.
But I still like, I mean, short stories, that's its own art form. And that's a muscle that you have to flex every once in a while. It's not, I don't look at it as something you move through into graphic novels. Like I still like to write them. I still have some that I'm working on at the moment. And, you know, and I still read short, you know, like Adrian Tomene's Killing and Dying is like an excellent short story collection. That's a really good example of those things. So, yeah, I still like working in that art form, I guess.
Yeah.
Storytelling form.
Right.
Yeah. I think it helps you develop muscles, you know, it helps tone you. It turns you into a better storyteller, I think.
It's hard to write a short story. You have a lot to do. You don't have a lot of real estate to do in it. And you know, you have to kind of get to your punchline quickly too. So it's there's something to it.
Yeah. Well, it's tricky to make somebody care about characters in less pages. So that's kind of the whole magic of it. Like, how can I get people invested in this character that they're just meeting and they're going to say goodbye to in 8 pages, you know?
Right.
So yeah, it's tricky.
But again, I mean, you know, all of your heroes were not all of your heroes, but you know, again, Klaus and Bag, and I mean, those guys all cut their teeth on that short, tight storytelling. You know, I could reread, I don't know, On Sports, you know, once a week probably, right? Because it, you know, it's tight in it, and it tells a story and it tells a thing, and you know. And if that was a 200-page graphic novel, I would hate it.
Yeah, you know? or caricature, that Klaus story about the caricature artist.
Yep.
It's perfect the way it is. But I mean, he could have, I'm sure, stretched that out into a graphic novel. You know, a lot of like full-page shots of a car driving across the country, stuff like that.
Sure.
But, yeah.
Absolutely.
Double page spread.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go. Let's be a little more specific. Let's talk about this book. Where did this come from? How did you guys get involved? Talk to me.
You want to do this?
Well, I can only talk about how I got involved with it, which was I knew the publisher Josh Frankel through comics because he published one of my best friends, Joseph Remnant. He did his book, he did Cleveland with Harvey Pekar.
Yep.
So I knew Josh that way, and he approached me because he was working with Chris on putting together a graphic novel about the Grateful Dead, and they wanted, with Rhino Records, and they were looking specifically for an artist who had a kind of underground cartooning style for the project, because that seemed more interesting than somebody who could just draw like a super realistic, you know, Jerry Garcia or something, you know. So they came to me, and I'm glad that I took it.
Yeah. Well, so I guess then we've got to ask Chris, where did this come from?
Mine is a bit more nebulous, of course, because I'm half Italian and talking tangents. I was out with some people from Warner, and afterwards there was a pizza parlor, and I was sitting next to Mark Pincus, who's the president of Rhino, And at this point, he had told me, he's like, yeah, you know, I've spoke with your buddy Josh. I'm doing this isn't his voice. I don't know what I'm doing. Sorry, Mark, if you saw that. I can't do your voice. And he was like, we're thinking of doing a Grateful Dead book with your friend Josh Frankel. And it was the first time I heard of it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And as we went on, with the evening, I had turned to him like 10, 20 minutes later, and I was like, you know how you do that, man? I'm getting drunk. You know, I'm like, you do Backbeat, man. Remember Backbeat from 1990s? It's the Stuart Stedcliffe Beatles thing. That's also not my voice. And we kind of like bounced it back a couple times, and we're like, oh, that's interesting. Like, you just show them as dudes in a band, just being dudes, right? And a couple weeks later, Josh was like, do you want to pitch for this? And I was like, I really don't. It scared me. The amount of research that would be needed to get it right seemed like a straight up wall, a mountain. It's not. It's nothing I had done before to that degree, and he convinced me to do this, to pitch for this, and it went through. And to my absolute and utter fear, I was suddenly involved in taking a master class on all things Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
You know, cut ahead to the book in your hand, and I think I did okay.
Yeah, you did okay. Were either of you guys Deadheads prior to this?
I know them from my younger years, being in New York City with hair down to my waist, trying to be in a rock band. I knew I was in a psych band, and we had more than our fair share of jams that, I don't know, I don't want to say evolved, more like devolved into like 30 minutes of noise. And of course, you get the comment of like, bro, we like the Dead, man. And it was nothing like the Dead, but the reference was there. And of course, I'd start looking into them to see who and what and how. I had not in any way been as deep into them or researched them or knew every little corner of the of their story like I do after this experience. But I did like the band, sure.
Yeah. Did you ever see them live?
I have. I saw them back. Saw them when I was really young, right after, I don't know what year that was, in the 90s. And then I saw Dead & Co. this last, say August or something last year. They played at the Garden for a couple of nights. At this point, I was already involved in working on this, and it's kind of a weird concert for me because I spent a lot of my time just watching the crowd. Which was interesting. I just sort of was trying to get everyone's, find why someone thought something was important to them, why that was their moment, their song, things like that, like the tonality of what we were hearing. Why was that guy, that girl, those people, why were other people going to get hot dogs? Like it was like a really really weird concert to go to and do a case study on the entire crowd secretly. I felt like a bit of a spy or something.
Yeah. Did you have any contact with members of the band, or?
We did not on this go around. I worked closely with David Lemieux, who is the Dead's chief archivist. He's wonderfully knowledgeable and had this. He has this sort of soft touch towards the subject matter. It's been such a big part of his life for so many years. And this is what I started to find as I got deeper and deeper into this, that everyone who was working on Rhino's side and involved with this band had such a, like almost family feeling towards these people. I keep saying characters, or at least I kept saying characters in the beginning. And I was like, well, no, these are men, and then when Donna's in the band in the 70s, and women who families and stories and so it was really important to them to be I guess respectful of all of it and not tell it in a way that was, I don't know, not respectful or but they had such a quality control of care on everything that it really kind of it put it in a different light for me writing this. This is a band that's like wildly important to a lot of people in a way that just other bands aren't. And that was an interesting thing to kind of be a part of and figure out how to show.
Yeah. And they have a connection to comics as well. I mean, at least Jerry was a comics fan.
Yeah, Jerry was big. Was a big comics geek there, which I think that's also a portion of where Noah shines on this book. Yeah, it's sort of doing a rendition of the art style that was kind of prevalent during those years where Jerry would be flipping through a book. So it was there's something tonally right in that as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, and the Deads even had their own comic book. There was like 16, 20 issues that ran through Kitchen Sink.
That is true. Yeah. So I mean, it's already there in the fan base. Like they've seen this to some degree. I just don't think. I think this is pretty much the first biographical retelling in a narrative and also entertaining kind of story way that they've done. And that was a bit of a mental hurdle to start typing on, because that's crazy. Why am I doing this? How did I get this? I have to, I don't want to screw it up. I really, more than anything, I didn't want to piss anyone who loved this band so much off by getting something wrong. And it's such a documented band. I mean,
it's period. I mean, there is documentation, but this is before the band was scrutinized, I suppose.
It's interesting. Once literally, once you get to the end of this book, it ends at Woodstock. From Woodstock on, you can find everything you've ever wanted to find about them. And prior to that, it was a bit of digging. Again, I've never researched something so thoroughly or so much in my life. I was working on the Fox show Prodigal Son, a crew position there where I was doing the technical acting for Lou Diamond Phillips, and my direct department of technical actors it was hysterical. In between all of my downtime, I had these, I had every single biography that everyone had ever written about this. My area was just, it looked like someone was taking a college course of these taped up books with like tape and things coming out and dog-eared, and it was just, I know I looked like a lunatic for a lot of that season while I was at work. I was just digging through all the research during my off time and such. It was a strange project, man. It was a strange project.
Yeah. Is there any firsthand information? I mean, other than, obviously people have written books and so you're reading those, but did you talk to, you didn't talk to the band. Did you talk to any of the hangers on? Not the hangers.
I greatly wanted to have a conversation with Steve Parrish, which I did not have, mostly because of where the book would end, and his time didn't really happen until after our book ends. If it were ever to continue as a series or something like that, there's where Steve would show up and such. But during the bulk of this, they were on tour. They were doing Dead & Co. Shows, so I couldn't really get much of a conversation with anyone. The one person I did truly want to talk to was Bob Weir for a few points, but I think I kind of managed to cobble it together from all the source materials without that. Going forward, I would love to, I know. Welcome back.
Now I'm on my phone because anyway, don't worry. Sorry, guys.
It's all good. It's all good.
Point is, if it ever went forward, I'd like to have a phone call or two if they were up for it. But I think our version of this, I can't say it's close to what they went through, but it's a pretty precise book from just the conversations I was able to have with everyone else around them and the source material around them. I kind of put it together as best I could.
Sure.
But if you're listening to this, Bob Weir, man, I would love to have a chat in the future, brother.
And what was did you have a working relationship with Dave? Dave Lemieux was supposed to be here, and he unfortunately had to drop out at the last minute. But did you work with him?
I was hand in hand with David for a lot of this. He ends up being the editor of the book and was really my quality control expert. If I had a question, it went to him. If I had anything like tonally, it went to him. He's a wonderful guy. He does I've actually enjoyed it. I kind of wish it was going on when I was writing the book, but he's been doing this Shakedown stream series on YouTube. Hey Dave, I'm giving you a plug if you watch this. They're doing the Shakedown stream thing where they do a pre-show for an hour where they talk and they have guests, and then they show an entire concert that they have in their archives of the dead it's been a lot of 80s stuff. And you know, it's really interesting because he knows every single person that's in this book, but he knows them like, oh, let me text them, kind of know them.
Right.
Yeah, which is like nutty. That's a weird thing. And he had such, like, again, reverence, quality control, respect for these people as people, not as these rock icons.
Right.
That I completely feel like I just like was absorbing his energy on this of like, you know, these are real human beings. These are not like, you know, it's Jerry. It's like these are people who had lives and families, made mistakes, got involved in this bizarre musical, you know, circus, really, and you know, all of that was what we tried to do. I did have a mandate that came down, which was that there would be like no main character. In other words, like I immediately when I got this, I was like, oh my God, I have to write about Jerry, right?
Right.
That's what you think. Like, oh, it's Grateful Dead, I have to write about Jerry. Oh, it's Grateful Dead, it's gonna have Jerry. But for a lot of reasons, that wasn't the way they did it. So going back to my own history of being an absolute comic geek, it was a team book. It was, I'm writing the Avengers, I'm writing Justice League, I'm doing Fantastic Four. And so if you're doing that, then how do you tell the story? Well, in this case, the history dictates the plot, right? But then, you know, so therefore the team moves along with the history, but that's not so interesting alone. So what I was having fun with, or what I tried to do, is give every character in the band one or two plot beats of their own. Like the B, I was going at like the B plot in my own head when I was writing this. Sure. Like see the development of Bob, this kid, to, you know, the guy who's at the end of the book. See the development of Jerry, pulling all these people together and going like, how the fuck do we do this? That was super interesting to me, and I guess thank you, Chris Claremont, John Byrne, and Brian Michael Bendis for showing me how to do that. To be honest, I thank you guys. I appreciate the thousands of comics I have in long boxes in the basement that showed me how to do that from Team.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Let me just make a little note here that if anybody in our watching audience has any questions, please feel free to type them in. We will do our best to answer everybody's question. I think Jordan is telling me we already have one that we can put up, so let's put it up. Rodrigo, I love the effects, paneling, flying notes when highlighting songs. Can you talk more about the process of creating these and making them unique? Was it inspired by the music itself?
That's you. That's you, man. That's you.
I mean, I was definitely listening to the music itself as I was working on it, but I can't say. I mean, I don't think I wouldn't know if the musical notes. It's not the actual songs or anything. It's not. I didn't go through the sheet music or anything like that. It's just a cartooning technique to show that music is being played. I mean, that's all. You know, have fun with it. That's all.
Yeah, very good.
Sorry.
Very good. No, that's good. That's good. Let me ask about. You wrote a full script, Chris? Yes.
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes,
Noah, because you generally are just illustrating your own stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I assume that you're not writing really heavy scripts, really detailed stuff, right? You're just.
No.
I suspect you're just drawing mostly as you think of it, kind of.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, and I have like an outline
Yeah.
penned out for what the story is, and then I basically just go forward and fill in the gaps with whatever inspiration I have.
Sure. So can you talk maybe a little bit about maybe not the challenges, but the differences between doing your own stuff and working from somebody else's script?
Well, for this book in particular, it was like extremely scary to work on it because it's like it's all like real stuff, you know. So it was kind of nerve-wracking, and it took a while to really. I had to kind of remove that from my process. Like I had to be like, okay, I'm not going to try and beat myself up about like making sure that everything is exactly how it was, that they're wearing exactly what they would have been wearing, or what, you know. I'm just gonna just do my very best, and that's all I can really do. But I was lucky because if I had some specific questions, I wrote to Ron Turner, and Ron Turner knew a lot of people who helped me out with like some little details. So yeah, I had that benefit. But yeah, scary. It's scary. It's still scary. I don't think I could read the reviews now. Like me and Chris were talking about it, and I'm like, I don't think we should read the reviews of this book. Like because it's such a solid fan base that it's like scary to know what they think of it, you know.
Yeah,
like I said, I did every single thing I could do to. I feel like I had a research department living in my head during this. I've never checked something so much and so thoroughly. I hope nothing is, historically incorrect. But if there is, there is. I've never done so much work on something to ensure that like a quality control aspect, because the fan base for this is this multi-generational. This multi-generational group of people who, for different reasons, really, really love this band. I saw, back to plug Shakedown Stream again. They had John Mayer on a few weeks ago, and he said something which, like, kind of said it. I mean, the project's done, but it kind of made me make sense of everything. Post where he was saying it was interesting for him being on stage to not be playing for 100% of the crowd. I was like, what does that mean? And then he goes into saying something, I'm misquoting, but how basically, like, everybody has their own Grateful Dead. There's a reason why you like that album, that song, that moment. Yeah. Maybe you were 22, 16, 30, you dropped acid, your serotonin levels went through the roof, and you had a religious experience to Box of Rain or Morning Dew or something like that. And that stays with you. You were there with your best friend. You come 20 years, 10 years later, you bring your son. You go a little further. It's a 50-year-old band now. Now you're there with your son and your son's wife. And like, that's not normal for rock music in America. I did another interview recently where they were asking me, they asked me a question about, like, why do they think the band is enduring for so long? And I answered them by saying that I think that it's one of, I don't know if it's the only, it's too precise to say, but it's one of the only bands that shows, post the World War II generation, the 1950s, it really just shows the growth of America decade by decade, year to year, with this cast of hippies, baby boomers, yuppies, our parents, our soon-to-be presidents, and every 5 years, every few years, there's this circus, this group of guys that are They're out there. They're doing this party. Everyone's getting together to dance and stuff, and it's happening through the civil rights movement. It's happening through Watergate. It's happening through everything. It just
9/11.
and I guess I mean it goes that far after Jerry, sure. But it's one of, I don't know many American bands that I really feel like the Grateful Dead is a picture into a certain capsule of American history that's just interesting. Not just going. I mean, I'm not talking like it's the best band in the world. You gotta. I mean, just as for like a historical standpoint, like these dudes, man, they're just a bunch of dudes who got together and did this and kept doing this.
I also
Found the way to do it. It's interesting.
they're a very interesting band because I think we define them as a rock and roll band. I mean, you just described them as a rock and roll band.
Primarily,
they are a rock and roll band, but they're also a bluegrass band and a country and western band, and you know, their music is not easily pigeonholed in a lot of ways.
I was just listening to something by Jerry and Dave Grissom, which is, I'd have to look at my Spotify, but it's beautiful. It's all just finger picking and mandolin and banjo, and like I can't do that. Like, I mean, and that guy's doing that missing finger the whole time. Like it's just wild. They were, and then like, I mean, I didn't just research this book. I researched their entire story, beginning to end for this. Also, if and when if ever there are volumes that continue, like I've stated at the beginning of this, I think I over prepare. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad, but looking like ahead of them, like even Jerry ends up in the next, you know, after 69 in the first like 5 years of the 70s, he does his Garcia album, and it's just him and I think Bill is on drums for that, and that's a great album. You know, there's that song Loser on it that becomes part of their set list forever, and at the same time you've got Bob Weir, who's doing this weird solo album where a number of songs from that ends up in their traveling set list for years. So what I liked about them was that they weren't just beholden to being, you know, that band. They're not, we are the Rolling Stones, we are U2, we are in this, we only do this. You know, they were everywhere, man. Jerry's playing on other people's albums. I know Crosby, Stills, and Nash had them in for something, and it's just interesting how like they're all over. It was really about a love of music for this guy and everyone around him. That's cool. I'm not no comment on modern music. You know, I don't know how often that happens.
Yeah. No, I mean, and kind of famously, like Jerry insisted on learning every song in like multiple different keys.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So you could play it in any circumstance, you know, which is crazy. That's not how bands work, right? You rehearse your version of it, and you don't adjust to somebody else.
No.
So,
you know, I mean, he could drop his voice and whatever. It works with you. It doesn't. Well, we'll do it. And then I can't do anything like that in any aspect of my life. I could do that with just the craziest math progressions on a piece of wood with 6 metal strings. Yeah, go for it, dude. Go for it, bro. I can't, you know.
We have another question, it looks like.
Oh, goody.
Seth Rosenblatt. Hello, Seth. What, if anything, from the era the book covers didn't make it into the book?
I cut out 20 pages of the acid. We did not know COVID would happen, and we would have a delayed release date. We were racing to make our date, and on one of my first final passes on the whole thing, I was about 20 pages over on the script mandate. It was like, you know, to try to keep it around 120 pages. I think I did go over. But at that point, when I read it, it was something like 150, 145 pages to the script. And what's the term? Kill your darlings, right? Yeah. I shredded the section of the Merry Pranksters and the acid test. I had written about 20 extra pages in there that I took out. And in a way, I think I'm glad now that that happened. It might have been confusing as a reader to get into the other aspect of the secondary cast that was coming in. It might make them, it would have probably blurred the narrative a bit. What I found funny was that doing the research and scripting of that period, I got lost in reading about all the drugs. I completely, like, at the end when I was like, all right, that's the acid test period, I'm now moving on to the next part of the script. I had realized, like, you know, the next part I was like, and I was just flying through, and I cracked myself up. I was just like, this is nuts. Like, this is such a wacky time, and everyone is on so many psychedelics here that I actually feel like I did this as well and got lost in the script here. But I cut out a lot about Ken Kesey, and which sort of broke my heart a little bit. Also Neal Cassady, where I was, you know, I had taken a class in college, beat writers class that was too early in the morning to really go to a beat writers class. It was like a 9 o'clock. I was always late. I was always driving. My bass player in the band I was in, Chris Medrano, and I always stunk of weed when we walked in the room. And it was like 9 a.m. And it was, why am I in this class? But I somehow caught all of that class. And when I was getting into this, I was surprised that, you know, Neal Cassady, who's on the road, Dean Moriarty, I was shocked that he was one of these characters. It was one of these revelations to me where I was like, this guy's here? How is he here? This is 10 years later from On the Road over, what am I doing? And I just, like, I loved that. I loved him. I loved that character. I dug some of Kerouac's work until I found Bukowski, and then I never read a beat again and read through all of Bukowski's entire arsenal of books. But yeah, it was a kill your darling moment, getting rid of a lot of Cassady and a lot of Ken Kesey. And I think it's okay. I think it worked out because it just worked out in the end. It kind of streamlined the tale a bit, getting away from just all of that. You don't want to lose readers midway through the book anyway, as they're getting kind of confused about the acid test.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Welcome back.
Is that my mic? Do you guys hear that?
Yeah. It's all good,
What
though.
should
Don't
I
worry
do
about
about
it. Just roll with it. We're fine.
You can pantomime.
right.
It'll be all good. Yeah, so we're gonna mute you while everyone else is talking. When you're talking, it's fine. Technology. It's astonishing to me that this works at all.
Yeah,
right?
it's pretty
Like,
wild.
video. It's crazy. It's totally crazy.
I absolutely love it when you see, Chuck Scarborough and Rachel Maddow talking to people, and there's like, and this is everybody starts pixelating in the middle of it. I'm like, this is national TV. Like, everyone's on Skype. What's happening? Yeah. And also, why does everyone have such shitty bookshelves behind them right now?
Well, mine's all right.
You're great. I got an amp I don't play anymore, but yeah, I mean, it's just, what the hell? All of America has really bad white bookshelves. If you work in media, that's an aside.
Yeah. All right, let's maybe talk a little tiny bit about craft. Noah, I assume you work on physical pen and paper, right?
Oh yeah, right here.
You're not a digital guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Nope.
Very good. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a page from this book? No.
No, it's a page from the graphic novel that I'm working on now, which is about Joseph Smith and like the Mormon Church.
Okay.
So, yeah. So that's
that doesn't look like I guess standard comic book format page, right?
No, I buy 11 by 15 paper, and I cut it down to 8.5 by 15.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I think what I did was, because the size of this book is going to be 6 by 9, so right. I looked at a copy of Dirk Bachter's Trashed, and I just photocopied that, and I made a template of a page size that would fit like really nicely in that dimension. So yeah, that's what I came up with.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's considerably smaller than a lot of people work, which I find interesting. And one of the reasons I find it interesting is because you are a little insane with your cross-hatching and your little scratchy lines and stuff, man. So to find out that you work much closer to the printed size than is sort of traditional blows me away even more. Like I'm not an artist, right? But I intellectually understand cross-hatching when it's this big and it gets shrunk down.
Yeah. Well, that book I drew at 9x12, so even smaller. Like it's like I got the deluxe versions of the book, and like the printed size is like basically the same size that I drew it at. So it's a little embarrassing because as an artist, like you really want your work to be shrunk down before it's seen because it kind of tightens everything up.
Yeah.
So it's almost humiliating to look at it reproduce that actual size.
Yeah. So what's your process, man? Chris sends you the script. You start thumbnailing it out right away. What do you do?
Yeah. In fact, let me see if I can find it here. I actually still have all the process stuff from the book, and I'll show you.
The script is written on cocktail napkins, loose leaf, and random pieces.
So this is just some sketches of the band, like when I was like just kind of figuring it out. And then I have so he would send me the script, and then I would break it down into pages like this, basically, just like super loose thumbnail sketches just to go off of. And then I would just get to work and do the finished artwork on like a 9x12, but right now I have them all. It's in a closet in another room, so I'm not gonna bring this up.
Yeah, it's all good.
But yeah. So just like from the script to this to the final art, And this is I guess this is like a LSD scene. I think it's Owsley running away from the beach house and stuff. So yeah.
How literally do you approach the script? I mean, are you just going, here's what he says, I'm going to draw that, or are you interpreting it?
I think for the most part, I was pretty literal, right, Chris? Did I change that much from that?
No, not too much. I mean, you totally took some license, which was, like I said, great because it was what you wanted to do and you went into it. But yeah, it was. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every now and then we had a couple of moments where you're like, what the hell do you mean with this? And I remember doing a few of my terrible white paper stick figure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but for the most part, it's pretty straightforward of what Chris had written, just like through my own cartooning filter, But yeah,
sure. Chris, you said you're making your own stick figures, which is great. I'm actually shocked how many writers I talk to who don't do their own layouts to see if it works or not.
I can draw. It is something I don't do because they're terrible drawings. But I had an ego moment early in my attempt at doing this where I thought I would be able to write and draw myself, and I don't have the speed or talent for that. But I can, I have in the past drawn a really pathetic stick figure rendition of what I'm trying to explain for different artists. It's work. I've done this for Pat. I've done this for Noah. I've done this for Vincent Kings, and it's they're all terrible. They're truly terrible.
But I think it's a useful tool in terms of can the thing that I've described
I
draw?
Sure.
Does it fill up too much space? Does it not fill up enough space?
Right.
Like, these are not concerns, I don't think, that most writers think about most of the time.
When I was involved in Thomas Alsop, there was a page that Palais put together as a PDF that he texted me, this is Hell Page. And I was like, I'm opening the email, like, what is Hell Page? And it was Hell Page. We would have needed another fold out to make this page work. It was like we needed like 5 more panels to, welcome to this book, and now it goes this way as well. And I've always remembered that because I was kind of in tears because it was just too much dialogue. It was a nightmare. It was like a Dr. Doom talking to Reed Richard about like fusion reactors thing. You ever remember those? I remember seeing that when I was, I don't know how young, where it was literally like a little Reed Richards head and like a little Dr. Doom's head, and it was just gobble gobble Stanley.
Yeah.
Smoking pot and writing nonsense. Kinda.
You did a couple of those for me, though, man.
Oh yes, I did.
Yeah, there was a couple where I'd have to write to Chris, like, Chris, what the fuck, man? This is like so much. This is all text.
I know. So, it is the challenge of the typist on these to not get too wordy, and it is a visual medium. It really needs to be a 50-50 collaboration. Like, it should be able to be explained if you see it. You don't need to over-explain a lot of things with the dialogue if you can. So yeah, I try. I really try.
Yeah.
So Noah, you break it down. You do a sort of a thumbnail stage. Do you do a separate pencil and ink stages as well?
No, I just I didn't even know that most people don't do it this way, but I just ink over my pencils and then erase them. And then after like somebody saw like a process shot on like Instagram or something, they're like, "You draw over your pencils? Like, what the? Nobody does that." And I was a little ashamed, but yeah, that's just what I do. I can't because like you're staring at a light all the time. Like, I don't want to do that. That's bad enough I look at screens all day long, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Literally the craziest one I've ever heard, I have to say, in all these interviews, it was Klaus. And Klaus says that he writes the book, and then he goes through and he pencils the entire book all the way through, and then he inks the book all the way through, and then maybe letters at first, but he does it all the way through. Like, he doesn't do it in chunks. He goes from page 1 to page 240 in one thing, and I'm like, oh my god, that seems insane to me. How can
kind of beautiful.
But what's great about comics is that everybody has a different way of doing it, and and they're all right, and nobody's wrong in the way they do comics.
Yeah, well, I'm mobile when I draw. Like, I make sure that's the reason why I draw at 9x12 if I can, because I like to fit everything in a backpack and go draw at the library or at a coffee shop or any chance I can get out of my studio, I take it. So I have like a folder that I just keep all my original artwork in as I'm working on it, and I just put it in my backpack and like go work on it somewhere else because I can't do it. I can't be stuck at a desk.
Wow, that's also kind of crazy in a way. Not crazy, but good.
I kind of do something similar where I write in Final Draft. I basically do a basic script, and then I go into it and put page and panel markers, then from there, as you go. But I am notorious in my day jobs at constantly running where I'm needed to be while throwing an iPad mini in my back pocket. And I'm on the script. I'm on the train. I'm on the script. I'm waiting for somebody to show up somewhere. I'm glancing at the script. I kind of do this. I'm outside of my house a lot working on these as well, which is strange. I don't know why. I find myself playing Red Dead Redemption 2 too much at home. I think that might be the reason.
I dig that.
I love that game. Yo, Brooklyn Magician, that's me. I'm a girl with a mask. I have red hair. Let's do it. Let's kill some teenagers and shoot them up. I have no honor. I'm like, I shoot everyone in that game. I love that game. Thank you. I would love.
That's a good plug. And
hey, Rockstar,
Brooklyn Magician.
Brooklyn Magician, come on,
please
find me.
That you'd like to play with them. That sounds great.
Who out there is a bastard and wants a bad guy posse? Let's do this. The redhead girl in the Mardi Gras mask. Let's do this.
Yeah. All right, Noah, you do your own lettering, right?
Oh yeah.
Hand lettering.
Yeah, it's all hand drawn. Everything just directly on
all hand lettering.
Yeah.
And so you're saying that you pencil and then you ink over your pencils, so you're doing the lettering right on to the same board, or are you doing them as overlays?
Yeah, on the same board. So like that's I'll pencil it out, and then I'll do the lettering, and then I'll do the drawing last. But it's all on the same page. So, yep.
Is there any difficulty with a book like this where obviously there's an outside editing step? It's not like you're just doing your own comics and it doesn't really matter what you do. You know what I mean? Like on something like this, it seems like it might matter a little more.
Well, there was all the editing for like dialogue and stuff was done kind of before I entered the picture. Like the script went through a lot of changes and stuff before it got to me. So it was pretty finalized by the time I got it.
Yeah. I took a lot of I took all of the editing processes and such. Like that was all me head on. And by the time Noah got it, it was really just the process of him getting through it and figuring out how to show it, you know.
Yeah. Well, where's David and or Rhino in this? Do they have any say?
Oh, so much. Yeah, they're the boss. In the end, everything went through approval up the chain. You know, the way we would do it is I would we would send stuff to Josh and Sridhar for approval, and then from there it would go upwards to Rhino. And I'm not exactly sure how many people on that side had to look through it and approve it and give opinions, but I'm pretty sure it was a quorum of people on their side as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I heard back from David a few times. I'd gotten a note from him earlier on in the first sequence of pages, the first 30 pages or so, and it was interesting. It was something about Phil Lesh where his cadence didn't sound right to him. And I mean, I took that, like that was one of the first things where I was like, whoa, you know, like, all right on. And the next thing I found myself doing was just devouring Phil Lesh's autobiography to get his cadence down.
Wow.
Listening to him on every interview I could possibly find at all eras of him, just to hear how he spoke. And then I'm crazy. I'm a crazy person, and I would find myself then trying to copy his accent, copy the way he spoke, because once I kind of got it, I was able to just sort of do it then. But you know, things like that. Back to the quality control. This is someone who David Lemieux knows. So if he's saying like this doesn't sound like him, well, fuck yeah, it doesn't sound like him. Let's make it sound like him. And you know, things like that I took incredibly seriously. And whenever I got a note like that from the people above, I completely like put that back into as a new mandate or something for how it should be. Again, this was not, I mean, you might be reading my words in the initial scripted panels, but through seeing it through Noah's drawings, but there's a baseball team behind us on this that got this thing together as well. Yeah.
Was there a lot of stuff that got changed once you started drawing? Like, were there any concerns about likeness or anything like that? He froze.
Oh, he's gone. Bye, Noah. He had a few edits here and there that he had to go through.
All right.
Oh, I'm right here. Do you guys see me?
Okay. It looked like you froze.
Okay.
So talk about that for a minute. I need to jump for a second. Go keep talking. Talk.
What was going on? Sorry, guys.
Yeah, he asked you if there were any moments where you had to redo art for likeness reasons or things like that. Edit your
well, yeah, in the beginning, yeah. But then I guess they are we still live?
We're still live.
Okay, yeah. So in the beginning, yeah, I had to do some changes, but I think at a certain point everybody kind of came to an understanding that like these would be like super accurate to how like they actually look. It's like you're making cartoon characters out of real people. So yeah, I don't know. That's cartooning. That's what it's like. You know. Hey, there you are. Hey, how's it going, buddy?
Hi, how are you?
I hate when I'm on full screen.
Tell me about it. It's just you looking at yourself.
yeah, it's really weird.
So Noah, tell me about yourself. Since we're about, will this be? Oh, we've got a guy. Hi, Ali's. Yeah, will this be a series? And if so, how far into their career are you taking it? There is
Who
no,
knows? Who knows?
yeah, it's an unknown. There is no confirmation of it going forward, as in, we have not had this conversation and there are no contracts signed. However, if Noah and I would both love for this to happen. I've invested a lot of time in being able to teach a master class on the Grateful Dead right now. Yeah, I'd love it if it were to continue. I mean, to be fair, going back to, John Mayer saying his Grateful Dead, that he had to be able to play to, 60% of the crowd, because that might be their song. The next area that we go into or would go into as far as a narrative story, I really dig that period of time, like from Alamont through their two career-making albums. Really, American Beauty. It would cover that whole period of time, and I kind of think that's my Grateful Dead. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of excited if that were to happen. There's a bunch of side characters that come up as the. As their story goes on, the secondary cast of the band, which would be the road crew, really becomes, and they always are important, but really becomes important as they go forward, especially with the Wall of Sound and everything through the 70s. Like, I would love to have the opportunity to write about like Rex Jackson and Steve Parrish. I've kind of got a man crush on Steve Parrish after doing this book. Like, I read his autobiography as well, and he just seems like somebody that I grew up with from Queens out here, with both his cadence, his accent, and his general New York kind of gritty 70s attitude. I'd love to be able to tell some of those tales going forward, but we will see.
Yeah,
that is known as of right now.
Yeah, I mean,
I
if you were to end up doing more, I mean, how many books total do you think you can see it being?
Ooh. It's on me, right?
Yeah.
Honest, there's so much that happens to them through the 70s that I don't think you could do just like, one 1970s book. I think you'd have to break something like that up in two. So honestly, it would probably be including this. It would probably take about 4 volumes to tell their whole tale till Jerry passes, and that's pretty much the end of this experiment. I don't think you would cover what happens next in Dead and Co. and such. I think that's a different project with different creators that handle that. If they do something like that, I think this, that tonally, that's the tale. I mean, he's the band leader. If the band leader leaves, it would be
Noah, is that a thing that you would want to continue doing, or?
I mean, the idea of illustrating the entire lifespan of a band that's so iconic as the Grateful Dead, and getting to contribute to that legacy of a band like that visually with my art is like, that's such a gift. That's incredibly appealing to me. I would take on however many volumes it turned into. I would love to do that. And just like that, Gasoline Alley is like one of my favorite comic strips.
Right.
And what I love about that strip is you're watching people grow up and change through time in real time. And I would love to just do that too, like take that process and just like, I'm going to draw, work with Chris on like just telling this whole story of these people and the experiences they go through and like how they all change and come together and fall apart and stuff like that. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Another thing I'm curious about, obviously, Noah, this is not the first time you've dealt with real people. You've got a great book about Lincoln. Is there a difference for you about doing nonfiction that is historical figures versus people who are still alive?
Ooh, that's interesting. This is actually the first time I've ever done that. I guess the difference would be a little insecurity about what those people would think of what I've done with their life. the problem, and I don't know. But yeah, if somebody's dead, you can just like you can tell a story. You can tell their story all you want. You can shape it, because that's the whole thing when you're dealing with like real life. You have to basically carve out a single narrative from all sorts of crap. I mean, how many stories could I tell about Chris's life? If I wanted to make a really bad story about Chris, I could do that. I could just cherry pick all the bad things he's done.
I'll give you some notes later. I'll text you later, man. I'll get you started.
So that's the whole thing, right? It's like you're taking somebody who's still alive to tell their own story. You're taking their life from and telling a story about them, and they could read it and be like, "What the fuck? This has nothing to do with me," or whatever.
Yeah.
It's I guess it's really. I never even thought about that. Thanks a lot, Brian.
Well, I'm not trying to make it harder, man. I'm just, I was just wondering, anything done for the first time unleashes a demon, man.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Actually, yeah, I would love to. I hope that me and Phil Lesh become really good friends. We'll see.
I love him. I seriously, if you're in the mood to read a good, I'm plugging everybody on the other side of this. Dude, Phil Lesh's autobiography is so well written. It's such a good book.
Oh yeah, cool.
It's a great book. It's so just like, it's just funny. It's a funny book for an autobiography. Autobiographies are, what they are. It's rare that you read one where you're like, this is great. This guy's voice is like, his voice is great. His narrative is great. Yeah.
I think the last thing I want to ask about craft-wise is the color. Aladdin collar. I'm not sure. Is that a person or is that a?
That is a human being who just he used to have wonderful long flowing locks and seems to have gone COVID crazy and shaved his head. Yes.
Okay.
That has nothing to do with his coloring skills.
That's a nice detail.
Did you know who was coloring you, Noah?
I didn't. No, they asked me if I wanted to color it, but I was just too busy. I've been working on this Joseph Smith book for so long. I was like, there's no way I can take on coloring this book. And so I think they just use he's an awesome colorist and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I didn't know about it. So
I believe Aladdin's pretty much found himself in a bit of a niche where he's been doing a lot of Z2's coloring on the book. So I think he's become Josh's go-to guy for this.
That's my impression.
Yeah, he's a great dude, man. He's a super sweet guy.
The reason I was asking is because, again, you do normally color yourself. Is there a difference when you're coloring yourself?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean when I look at the work in there, when you're drawing something, you go, okay, this is going to look like this when it's done, because that's how you're visualizing it. So seeing it through how somebody else, like their own color decisions and stuff, like doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily how I would have done it, but I still like it. I think it still contributes something really good to it and everything. But I think the problem is that like my art style, I kind of have like a signature look with my coloring and stuff that's more pared down and more muted and stuff. So, and like you can see, like I colored the cover of the book. So that's the difference of styles of coloring kind of with each other, But yeah.
Yeah. Was there any place where you left notes for the colorist, or
no? And
I'm work for hire on this essentially, and whatever they come up with is great.
I mean, it's kind of exciting to see how somebody's going to interpret it. So it's all like new and interesting to me. There's one thing in there though that I can complain about, and it's that I drew a panel where they're all dancing on a hill that was just me making fun of that like Matisse painting of the dance. So I thought he would pick up on that and color the painting, and he didn't pick up on it. So like I'm kind of nervous that people are going to see that panel, like some art history nerds or something are going to be like, oh, that looks just like that Matisse painting. Like they're going to think I ripped it off, but it's not. I didn't rip it off. It's supposed to be like an homage to that, because I thought that'd be like a funny LSD thing, like you're becoming this like famous classic work of art or something, But that's how I would have done that differently. But
totally ripped that off, man. What are you saying?
Yeah.
Art thief, man. Fucking art thief.
Art thief. Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
is there anything you learned about making comics that you might not have learned otherwise by doing this book, either of you?
Yes.
I had to draw a lot of stuff I would have never drawn, so that's always really good. That cars, for example.
Yeah. This entire book was the entire thing was a learning process for me. I've never done a biography. I've never written about people who exist like this. The whole thing. I've come away from this with I was talking to a friend about that. I came away from this project with a skill set that I had no idea I possessed, that I could get so OCD about the factual applications of people's lives to the point where I'm like, that's not fucking right. No, I can't do this. No, I got to keep Googling until I get to the dark web to find the answer or something. And not to be like, hey, Miscavige, but at the end, when we got our comp copies a few weeks ago, I went up to my roof. That's where my roof is, and I no, I don't live down there anymore. So I went up to the roof and I threw my phone down here, and I took the book and just sort of I read it cover to cover, like, all right, I didn't write this. Mm-hmm. Let's see. And like, I closed the book and was like, son of a bitch, man. This is solid. This is a solid thing. Like I had 2 spots of fear. I read through it. I was like, no, that's fine. I won't say what they were. And, it was just, no. But like, there was something I did not think not that I didn't think I could do it. I don't want to be proud of myself, but I'm proud of having gotten through this. There was a moment when I was dead in the middle of both the research, the writing, the entire process. And it was one of those moments where I was just like, there's no way out of this but through. Mm-hmm. And that was horribly crushing and freeing at the same time. Like I have to do this. I have to do this. Like at the end of this, if I don't know something, I fucked up. And it was, the entire process was a really humbling learning curve and a really humbling process to do. It was just humbling over the fact that like I was given this opportunity to add my name to this thing that everybody knows. Like that's, and then at the same time, the responsibility of like, we are going to be the first ones to kind of show this. Like, there's no movie about the Grateful Dead. There's no cartoon. There's no like, hey, it's Jerry and the guys and they're doing their thing. This is really the first time where people could look at the story and experience the story as a story and not just as the band, the songs, the show, that period of time. And that was both, it scared the shit out of me, and at the same time, it was a massive challenge to do. And I hope I did okay. Reviews will hang me, I guess, and we'll see how August comes if I pulled that off or not. But yeah, well, man,
we picked it as our book of the month, so you must have done.
Yeah, you did great.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I will take that.
You should. Jordan, do we have any last questions at all? No? Okay. You got about a minute to ask another question if you want to ask a question. Otherwise, I'm going to start to wrap this up. I think the next thing to ask will be, well, let's plug stuff. What do you got coming up? What's next? What's your next thing, Chris?
Me? Don't you hate when people do this? I can't tell you. Of course, yeah. I can't.
No, it's all good, man. It's all good.
I have an announcement coming out next month for what will be another one of these legacy music books at Z2. Okay. I am floored by this, and also
Herman and the Hermits.
Yeah. I'm floored that they had enough faith in me to do this. I love. He's both a friend for years, and I'm a big fan of his artwork. The artist that I've been teamed up with on this project, and it's 100% the same thing that I just went through, where I have been immersed in another period of music for the last 8 weeks, to the point that my Spotify and YouTube account keep throwing the strangest things to me when I log on. But yeah, I have an announcement that'll be coming out in about a month, and then next year, next year, if all goes well, I should have 2, if not 3 different graphic novels coming out that will all be announced. So
Awesome.
I'm, COVID pending and the world shutting off again. That's why I'm saying 2, if not 3. I don't really think you could
Sure,
keep
obviously.
a direct arrow right now on when a release date of something is, but next year is super cool, man.
And I'm assuming that that acting things are just not happening over the last.
The other part of my life, yeah, working in film and TV. Yes, I do occasionally hand someone a folder and say, "Here's your folder, Jane," or walk past someone, give another line, give the pertinent piece of the plot in a courtroom scene. No, the industry's dead. Whether it's either my on-camera stuff, which is sometimes too far and few between, to my everyday job of doing the technical acting for leading men, it's done, man. It's personally, I don't see how logistically one can put a crew together during the COVID period of time safely. You need a minimum of 70 people, and then you bring in extras on every level of extra manpower that you're going to need, and you end up going from like a normal crew to immediately you're on 150, and then you have a day that has 300 background that are going to be crossing the street. That's 500 people.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
can't do it. So then you look at LA right now and Hollywood, and they're going through flare up too. I don't know why everybody's pushing this, but I would get used to watching repeats until deep into 2021. Yeah, it's funny, but I don't, this said, everybody works in that field. Yeah, it's a lot of people who are incredibly physically strong. They can take 14 hours, 12 hours a day in like sub-zero temperature and are excited when the soup guy comes around every 3 hours or something. These are really strong people that are like, fuck it, let's go, let's do this. But this is a situation where, luckily the parents, the adults, the producers and such, like the companies themselves, I don't think it's really cost effective to kill your entire staff to shoot another episode of Tom Selleck being the good cop or something like that right now, especially, and then tonally, like, why are you doing cop shows? Like, why are you doing all this right now with everything? I don't, who am I? I'm a guy who wrote a book about the Grateful Dead who works in film and TV. I'm not the one to ask these questions. I don't think you will see a single thing really start up again until like March of next year. I also don't think we're going to open up as being able to fly to Europe again until March of next year. But
and so March of next year means that things won't start coming out until like September of next year.
Yeah,
right?
I'm sure there's a moment, where Marvel will announce that everything they've been trying to do is back a year and a half. There's a moment where like just everyone is you just have to face facts. It is not going to happen. You're going to kill Ryan Reynolds, you're going to kill Hugh Jackman, you're going to kill these people if you do this.
What's interesting about this moment to me, though, is it almost means to me that comics and prose and things like that actually have a moment to shine in the cultural spotlight, because there's not going to be new releases. A cartoonist is still drawing. The cartoonists have not stopped. The pencils have not stopped.
No, the supply.
Oh my God, I'm going crazy because I'm inside by myself all the time.
I mean, the supply chain is what is the question. How do you get your fiction right? It's very easy to put on Netflix. It's very easy to go to Comixology. But in a situation like a shop, like your own, we have reached a situation that's curious. You can do curbside. You're not getting that extra buy though. If someone who's walking through and finds like
Sure.
John Lewis's March or Mouse or something and goes like, what is this? Oh, this is super cool. So you just lost a $20 sale.
Yep.
They just lost enlightenment on what you can do in story. And I've been curious personally how something like this affects your, not the supply chain, but the means in which you find fiction. If you're only going to certain portals, if it's only becomes a Comixology, no offense to anything, if it's not the physical part of going to a store and stuff, there's something about the community of comics that
Absolutely. I think the community of comics is what makes comics and what is comics.
100%.
I think that it's everybody knows what Spider-Man is, but people don't know about Noah's new work unless I tell them about it.
Exactly. Yeah,
That's true.
People don't know about a new cartoonist who just came out unless me and my staff are out there going, "Oh, this is great work. You should read this. You should love it."
Absolutely.
I've always said what my job is taking the things that are in my heart and just kind of telekinetically pushing them out like fire exploding from my brain, and going, you've got to read this. You're going to read this and you're going to get thrilled. And then they like get set on fire and they pass it on to 5 of their friends. Yeah. It's the only medium I think that actually works like that. Yeah. You meet a guy. Such mass media and comics are so of the heart and of personality and of our joy about it.
You meet someone in the shop who you get on with, and I worked for the first 4 months that when Midtown Comics opened. I know all those guys from growing up in Greenpoint in Brooklyn, and I remember they were like, "Hey, you seem to know about comics. You want to work here?" I was like, "Not really, but I'll do this." And I was throwing Warren Ellis's Planetary in everyone's hands.
Yeah,
I think that's the best science fiction graphic novel series, but ever. It's so like I was my mind was blown on that. I was like, you need this. No, you need this. Here's the trade. No, you need.
Yep.
And that's how young geek sort of finds.
Well, and it's the great thing about the comic shop that doesn't happen in other media anymore. It used to be record stores were like this too, but we don't have record stores anymore, right? Record stores are gone. Right? Yeah. Because it's all been taken over by Spotify and Apple Music and blah, blah, blah. Comic shops are still the one place where you can walk in and have that person go, "No, you have to read this book. Here is the book for you." And
you know Matt Rose.
It's why I do this.
Matt Rosenberg. He writes for Marvel now. He used to work at Forbidden Planet in New York. And I can't tell you, I don't know how long ago that was anymore, like 5, 6, 7 years ago. I have burned through hours in the back of that shop while he was there going like, what's new? What's going on? And he was such a great salesman with such a great pulse at the time on comics. I don't know how much extra money he made Jeff at Forbidden Planet through me alone talking to him back there. And there was just something, there's something kinetic, there's something catchy that happens to you when you talk to the shopkeeper that you also talk about 10 other things too. Like you start to, there was Cosmic Comics in New York for years. And Mark was the owner until he started getting ill and then he got rid of the shop. He was
I'm a Brooklyn boy myself, actually.
Right on.
I grew up in Cobble Hill. I mean, this is 30 years ago. But
right on. Mark was the grouchiest human being I have ever met in any store. He was a bastard. It took a year until he was my best friend. And it was like this little thing I did. As this kid, I was just like, nah, this guy's got an act. I'm going to break this guy. It's going to take time. Yeah. And I used to, my pull list at that shop, I used to write him a love note. And every week I would be like, "Dear Mark, Thank you. I whatever nonsense I was writing to him. But like eventually one day he would never acknowledge that he did. And one day he was just like, I like that last letter. He's handing me my bag. And I was like, I win. I'm in. This is my shop. I have conquered you, Mark. You know.
Yeah, nice.
Those little beats about the industry are nice. I don't know. I don't know what happens post the situation. There will be stores. We will be able to go in them again, but you know, these books will continue to come out. It's the way it gets into people's hands that I don't quite see the path right now with what we're going through.
Yeah, no, that's. I mean, Chris, I don't think it's going to change. I think we're certainly going to lose 10 or 15% of the stores or whatever. There's no doubt about that, just as an economic process. But I think it was Joe Field who said, "We're the cockroaches of retail, right? We've survived so much, you know. People step on us every day, and yet it's our passion, it's our joy." I mean, I literally wake up in the morning and I go, I get to sell comics. Yeah. That's fucking cool, man. There is nothing as cool as being able to talk about and sell comics and do this kind of thing, man. This is the greatest thing in the world. And
here's a question for you. What is the book you hand to someone who comes into your shop who's never read a comic? What is here's your 101 book? I used to give.
Well, it changes all the time, right? Like it literally changes every 6 weeks. Okay. If I had to pick just like a series that we do, it's probably Saga. Still,
right
they've been on the market for 3 years. Sure. You know, because you want something that's long enough that you're going to get them to go. It used to be Sandman. Sandman was the go-to. You know, but yeah, it's probably Saga.
I used to push Dark Knight Returns on people who never read a book, and I would say, if you don't get this by the end of the book, this probably isn't for you.
Yeah.
And that was always like and anyone I ever do meet who hasn't, like, I've never read comics. I'd like to read one of yours. I'm like, you know, here. I do.
My goal is always to find something that's like kind of 10 books deep, so that if you like it, you actually have an immediate thing you can go to. So if you read Dark Knight, yes, Dark Knight's great, but you've just read the best Batman story.
Basically.
So where do you go next, right? I mean, I can give you year one, sure. But if you want more Batman, like there's like 2 other comics that are as good, right? So it becomes harder to make the chain work, right?
Fair point. And also fair point as a retailer to give something that's multi-volume instead.
You know, and then be like, oh, so you do like Brian K. Vaughan? Well, then you'll probably like Alan Moore. You'll probably like Garth Ennis. You'll probably like. And so then you can build out. Oh, and so now you've read stuff that is, I don't want to say mainstream, right? Because all the books that I named are not necessarily mainstream,
right?
But now you can get something that's a little more experimental. Now you can read Clouds. Now you can read Bag. Now you can read sort of the next set of voices that jut out from that, you know. That's how I do it. But, you know, every member of my staff has their own go-to books. That's the brilliant part about it, is that each of us, if you ask us what we like, you're going to get 6 different answers, and you're going to get 6 different paths through the mountain, right? Because we're all going up Everest. We're all Sherpas getting you up that mountain.
Yeah, that's true.
But how we take you there, the path specifically, is going to be different for each of us.
Yeah, right on. Good answer. Good answers. Yeah.
Well, I've been doing this a small amount of time, so I have it figured out. All right, Noah, plug some things. Give me some plug.
The next thing I have coming out is from Fantagraphics in December, and it's an autobio comic called "Please Don't Step on My Jinko Jeans." And so it's coming out. Just really excited for it. It's really well designed. It's going to be great. It's a really funny little book. So
nice. Yeah. And then you said after that you've got the
I'm working on a graphic novel which is supposed to come out in the spring of 2022. So not for a while.
Okay.
I've been working on it for a couple of years now. And it's about Joseph Smith and the founding of the Mormon Church.
Yeah. Have you read, for example, Allred's Golden Plates?
Yep, I did. Yeah. He sent them to me actually. In fact.
Oh, nice.
But my book is nothing like his books. He illustrated the Book of Mormon. I'm doing the creation of the Book of Mormon. How that
Nice.
came to be. So yeah.
Yeah.
That is
Sounds
a strange. That is a strange sci-fi story. How that thing came to be, man. It
Boy,
is sci-fi.
yeah, dude.
That's
Just
like
wait till
ancient
you read
aliens.
this.
That's like ancient alien stuff. The guy with the hair, you know what I'm talking? Like the alien is like there's some strange.
Yeah, it's a crazy
No
story.
offense to anyone who is Mormon. It's just a very strange opening. Yes.
None.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Very good. Very good.
Noah, when you work, this is kind of my last question for you. When you work, how many pages a day are you putting out?
Well, usually one a day.
Okay.
But if I'm on like a pretty strict deadline, I got to do 2 a day, and that's just like an all day working schedule, and then I'll take the weekend off. But yeah.
Okay. Because there are times I totally feel you're producing like Kirby, like 4 or 5 pages a day.
I thought the same thing, to be honest.
It looks like from the outside, it's probably like public buses, right? You wait an hour and then 3 come at once, right? But
yeah. No, that's true too. Some days I won't draw anything, and then like the next day, it's like a energetic buildup, and I just like crank out a bunch of pages and stuff and a bunch of artwork. It's just how it works. It's weird like that, but yeah. And I'm always like tinkering with stuff on the internet and putting collections together, or like I'm always thinking about like ahead of like what the next projects are going to be and stuff. I just want to keep myself going. Like Kim Deitch, who's like an artist I really look up to, because he's always working on something. He's never not working on something. So that's the way to be.
Yeah. Comics.
Yep. Comics. That's right.
Yeah. Stick around when we're done with the show. We'll do another thing after the show is done.
Okay.
But I definitely want to thank Noah Van Sciver. I want to thank Chris Miskovich.
You got it that time. You got it. No, you got it.
That's the worst fucking part. Anyway, I want to thank you guys both for doing this book. I want to thank you for coming and talking to us. I want to thank Josh at Z2 for putting together this line of music comics. I think this is a great idea. That's going to be one of those things that's really going to bring new readers into comics.
Smart.
Through a thing that they understand and they want to learn more, and they're going to get more out of comics because of it. So I think that's really great. I want to thank Jordan for doing our tech support.
Thanks, Jordan. Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate you, Jordan. You're the best one here. Thank you.
No, he really is. I want to thank The Beat for sponsoring us. I want to thank all of the members of the Comics Experience Graphic Novel Club and all the customers of Comics Experience who keep us giving you comics all the time, because that's the fucking deal, man. We're going to be back next month with The Loneliness of the Long Distance Cartoonist by Adrian Tomine, who's going to be here with us live in studio in about a month. And we're going to talk about comics with him, which should be a fascinating fucking conversation, I think. So thank you all. If you're sitting at home, you don't have something to read, you're going insane because you're trapped at home, read a book about the Grateful Dead. It's really good. It's worth your time. And otherwise,
and it comes with music. You can do it.
It has music too, and
there's a QR code
full of like learning about shit and figuring out shit. So, thank you both, gentlemen. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Next month.